for everyone who has jumped on today. We're obviously here to talk about skin cancer checks, and the title of the presentation being Skin Cancer Checks, What and Why. So really, we want to get a high level understanding today of what is involved in a skin cancer check and why would you implement a skin cancer check program in your workplace. So just a couple of housekeeping bits and pieces to mention. I know it's lunchtime, so obviously great if you have your camera on, but otherwise feel free to grab your lunch, grab a cup of coffee, tea, whatever you're going to feel most comfortable with to have the brain powered up and ready to focus for the next 45 minutes. We've obviously got an intimate crew here today, so I want to just make this really generally up. If you've been to any of our presentations or masterclasses before, it's fairly informal. So yeah, feel free to either pop questions in the chat box or take your mic off mute and shout out with any questions along the way. I think that's pretty much everything. So I'll kick off from here. So just to start with, I suppose, sharing a little bit about Pinnacle Health Group, who we are and why we feel qualified to talk about skin cancer checks in the workplace. We're a corporate health organisation. We have been delivering wellbeing programs for roughly 15 years or so now, and we were originally most well known, I suppose, for wellness centres on site at a couple of our key financial services clients. But over that period, we've also been had a strong focus on delivering corporate wellbeing programs. So at the moment, we're working with just over 200 clients, and I suppose for us, you can see down the bottom there, our mission is to inspire healthy change, and the vision really is for a world where the workplace actually creates healthier people. So for us, we're certainly strong believers that the workplace has a really strong responsibility to ensure a comprehensive offering of wellbeing programs, services and resources to employees, because as you can see there, the workplace is the starting point for the employee, but for that employee, where we kind of feel that the impact there and the ripple down and the flow on effect for those employees, teams, their colleagues, their families and their broader communities allows us to scale wellbeing more broadly across the globe, I suppose. So really, today in terms of talking about skin cancer checks, just one part of obviously a whole range of services that we offer and that you will well be aware can be offered in the workplace in terms across employee wellbeing. Just quickly on myself, so my name's Trent Marsh. I haven't introduced myself. I'm the National Health and Wellness Manager at Pinnacle Health Group. I've been at Pinnacle going on 4 years now next month, crazily. And I guess I'm having these conversations daily around workplace programs, strategy, services, and how we can help support, shaping better behaviours for employees or healthier behaviours for employees. So, today is not about us necessarily telling what do we do. It's more providing some high level understanding of what to be aware of, and then obviously it is our most popular service. So off the back of this, if there is any questions or any areas of interest, or you want to reach out and chat about how we can actually roll out a program at your workplace, then the door is always open for that, obviously. Okay, so just moving into the outline of the session. So today we're going to talk about, firstly, what is a skin cancer check? Why would you deliver a skin cancer check at your workplace? Where do they fit in the broader scheme of workplace health and health assessments and services? Fairly importantly, how do we actually deliver a skin cancer check program in the workplace, and what are the things to be aware of in the lead up to delivering, and then obviously throughout and post delivery of your program? And then just talking a little bit about how can we structure the wellbeing program to ensure that employees understand partly that you actually have a wellbeing program and have a name around that, but also how can we structure that so that we can drive the highest engagement, and then we're covering key themes across mental, social, physical, emotional well-being, for example. And then at the end, we'll have a few minutes of Q&A to share out with any questions that you have. I can see, Rick, you've also just jumped in. So for anyone who's jumped in that missed my mention at the start, I want to make this fairly interactive. Feel free to jump into the chat box or take your mic off mute anytime throughout the presentation and ask any burning questions you have. But otherwise, the intention is to give you some time at the end to shoot a few of those at me. So firstly, I wanted to start by sharing some of the stats. So if we think about why would we deliver a workplace skin cancer check program, well, these stats here alone talk specifically to that. So as you can see there, 2 in 3 Australians we know will be diagnosed with skin cancer by the age of 70. So if you're sitting there in the office at your workplace now, and you've got a few colleagues next to you, you can, 2 in 3 of you at some point by the age of 70 will be diagnosed with skin cancer. So obviously that's a pretty confronting stat, and one that is, readily out there and available. But I think, the reality is that most of us understand that in Australia, the UV and that we're living in certainly a very warm climate, and we need to be more sun safe, but perhaps we don't know how actually the high level of prevalence of skin cancer across our population. So in Australia, we rank first for the age standardized melanoma incidence rate across the world. So essentially, if you like, we're the highest prevalence of skin cancer across the globe in Australia. Across all cancers in Australia, skin cancer ranks number 1 in terms of prevalence. So again, just to clarify that, across all the diagnosis of cancer across Australia, skin cancer is the highest. And in 2022, so we haven't got the 2023 stats here, but in 2022, we were expecting that 16,800 Australians would be diagnosed with melanoma. So again, a pretty crazy stat to actually think about. And without even diving any deeper than here into why would you offer this in your workplace, hopefully these kind of stats are ones that you can use if you're at the stage of trying to explain the value to your leadership team as to why should we actually implement a skin cancer check program. So some pretty confronting stats there, and very important as to for us in the workplace to create the convenience and the awareness around these sorts of things to our employees. And by the way, just to mention, I know that each of you will be probably in a different at some point along your journey. Some of you here would have completed or either accessed your own skin cancer check in the workplace, or potentially helped your workplace roll out a skin cancer check program. I might just start by asking, handing over to you guys, and just asking you to pop in the chat box who, if you've already implemented a program, or if you're just in information gathering stage, or what does that look like for you? I'm just don't have the chat box up in front of me, so bear with my screen there for a moment. So Michael, information gathering, thank you, mate. Rick, standing offers, yes, for RACQ employees. I know that we work with you guys, so thanks, Rick. And Margaret also have a skin cancer check in place already at the moment, so that's amazing. So I guess a couple of you that have already rolled out this service, and for Michael, I guess, gathering information so for some point in the future. So thanks, guys. Appreciate you sharing that. So let's jump into what is a skin cancer check. So you can see here a bit of an outline of what's included in a skin cancer check. Firstly, I just want to share the information that I'm offering today is obviously specific to our skin cancer check offering, but you'll find across the board most providers will be providing a fairly similar service. So whether that is through us or through another provider. And I'd start by saying that a skin cancer check is delivered by a skin cancer practitioner. For us, they would either have a certificate of dermoscopy or an advanced certificate of skin cancer medicine. So certainly very qualified to deliver these checks. However, not specifically qualified to provide an official referral on. What our practitioners would do is designed to be an early intervention, an assessment of the skin, and then a recommended, as you can see there, follow-up, recommended actions and urgency, and follow-up and removal as necessary, which would be from the employee's GP. But certainly very well qualified, the practitioners, to deliver this service. Within the actual check, the dermoscopist will complete a skin cancer risk assessment. So that would include family history and background, skin type and exposure to the sun. How readily are they exposed to the sun, whether in the workplace or in their general life? So that is completed at the start of the assessment. We'll also then complete a head to toe comprehensive assessment. So that would basically be going through from the top of the body in your scalp, all the way through down between your toes, into the nail beds and those sorts of areas. So certainly a very comprehensive assessment and check of the skin. And that's done using dermatoscope technology. And you can see the image just on the right-hand side there, basically a magnifying device that allows the practitioner to assess the sunspots or suspicious lesions and be able to recommend from there as to what they think from the next steps. For the employee, the check will involve a skin cancer risk and a skin cancer damage score, which would cover either a low, medium, or high risk. So it's obviously important to distinguish those. The skin cancer damage is what is the health of their skin at that given time, and the skin cancer risk is obviously ties back into the family history, skin type, and exposure as well. So I guess number one, creating awareness around what you need to be looking out for yourself, and are you at high risk or are you kind of low risk, and then what's your current skin health, and then recommended urgency and actions from there based on any suspicious lesions or spots that the practitioner would identify. A really important part of the assessment or the check as well is the sun safety education. So the practitioner will provide some in-depth education, which is also included in the booklet which they will receive at the end of the skin cancer check. But I think it's one obvious, looking back at those stats that we just talked about, I think that every one of us could do with some more education around sun safety, and whether or not their skin is healthy at that given point, or they need to seek further investigation. It's certainly important around that education. And the other point to note on that is, for us and other providers I know also offer workshops around sun safety and skin cancer checks, and that can be an option for you either pre your program or post your program for those employees once they have the information on how they track you in terms of skin cancer risk. And then in the follow-up from there is the practitioner recommending next actions, and they will either recommend low, medium, or high risk and the urgency around that. So that could include things such as go and seek further investigation from your GP as soon as possible to then potentially get a referral into a dermatologist if there is any removal or excision required. But it may also be, recommended actions here is your skin is looking healthy right now, but certainly a self-assessment, and we would always recommend an annual 12-month skin cancer check, because things can change obviously a lot over that 12-month period. Rolling into why would we offer workplace skin cancer checks, and I suppose what I'd like to point out here is there's a breakdown between what are the values for the employees, or what are the benefits for employees, and then as the employer or the leader rolling out the program, what are the benefits for the organisation, if you like. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. But as you can see there, for the employee, what we're aiming to offer here is ease of accessibility to a skin cancer check, and awareness of the risk factors around that sun safety education as well. What we know for most of us as humans is that we're all busy, and we all have a lot going on, and most of the time we don't make the time for regular GP checks, for our health checks and blood tests, for things like skin cancer checks, flu vaccinations. All of those things are the reason why the workplace has a huge responsibility to offer convenience and ease of access as the first step to prevention for some of for things like for the employer or the organisation. This is literally a life-saving service. So I can't tell you how many times over the past 15 years we've had an individual come back from a workplace skin cancer assessment and really just thank us so much for offering the service, and obviously very thankful to the organisation for offering the convenience and access to this service. And I think Tom, who's on the call here today, and one of his physiotherapy clients, actually, I think just reached out a couple of weeks ago to say a huge thanks to Pinnacle Health Group for offering a skin cancer check program in the workplace, because he was able to seek further investigation and have a removal of a melanoma. So there's so many examples of that from our perspective and our side, and that's certainly what gets us up and out of bed in the morning, is knowing that this is literally a life-saving service, and we're helping people a lot. And for you as the organisation, it's not always, I suppose, we hear a lot that return on investment. How do you measure success of a program like skin cancer checks? Well, it's not necessarily where we're engaging 50, 60% of the workforce. If we've actually found a melanoma on one employee and you've offered that service, then I would consider that is a huge success for the program. So you can be making a massive impact as that person responsible for rolling the program out. And also, I mentioned there, understanding workforce health and risk. So it's obviously, a program like this will provide a post-program de-identified data report for you. So you'll be able to assess the current health, skin health of your workforce, but also what are the skin cancer risks for your workforce. And that will vary a lot between what the demographic of your workforce looks like, whether employees are mainly head office employees, whether there's employees out on the road working on construction sites, and particularly those that are working outside for their jobs. That skin cancer risk and the prevalence is likely to be a lot higher, and obviously even more importance placed on a program such as this. So just sharing on this slide here, guys. And by the way, so far, just please share. Is there any questions so far? Is that all? I imagine fairly straightforward and makes sense. Yep, perfect, guys. So as I mentioned, as for the employer, post-program, this is a bit of an outline of what you will receive as part of a skin cancer check program, and also a bit about pre-program, how we will support the rollout and drive engagement for your employees or your workplace. So you can see on the right-hand side here is just a quick screenshot of an example de-identified data report. So you can see there, you will get the basic demographics. So how many total attendees, DNA is did not attend, what was the average age? We either offer a percentage of employees who are accessing their first skin check, or how many total employees. So for example, 110 employees out of 171 were accessing their first skin check, sorry. That one is a hugely important one, and one that we certainly highlight in our post-program reporting meetings with our clients, because it talks to that convenience and access to a service that is obviously super important. So Yeah, that's definitely an important stat, and a stat that I'd also like to point out, which if you've been following us for a while, you probably would have heard us talk about at some point. But over the 15 years we've been rolling out programs such as this, we've for Pinnacle Health Group clients, the average employee accessing a skin cancer check is 71% of those employees are accessing the service for the first time. So I didn't articulate that very well, but 71% of the employees that access a skin cancer check delivered by Pinnacle Health Group has been their first skin cancer check. So, and I've had a reporting meeting yesterday with quite a large client, and I think we had something like 65% of their overall population had not accessed this service. So again, I know I'm kind of going on about that a little bit, but that's the kind of crux of why we would actually implement this in the workplace, because of that convenience, because of the awareness, the ease of access, and it's literally a life-saving service. You can see also there we will provide, as I mentioned, the skin cancer risk score, and we'll provide the skin cancer damage score. You can see that we've got high, moderate, and low skin cancer risk. And down the bottom there, suspicious, we will report on how many suspicious lesions found and how many employees were referred to their GP. So obviously, they're very important stats to be able to report back to the leadership team as well around how many employees needed to go and seek further investigation. And out of those, if that's your workplace, and out of those 15 people that were referred, there potentially is a fairly high chance that one or two of them may have been melanomas that they're able to then get removed, and you're saving them. You can see here, we've just noted that we'll also provide all of the marketing materials prior to your program. So obviously we understand it's hugely important. You are providing a life-saving service, but you need to see that you're driving or succeeding in high engagement in the program. So for our service, we would provide an FAQ document outlining exactly what is included in the check, so that can be shared with the employees so they know what to expect, they know how to prepare, and also that all of the information is de-identified and there's no personal data shared with their workplace. It will also include a template, an email template when sharing your comms or launching your program, and we'll also share posters with QR codes, because we're more and more of the clients that we're working with now have a diverse workforce, and those that are in front of their computer and have access to their email every day, obviously in their head offices, are getting ease of access and they can book online easily. However, we're well aware that those that are out on work sites in manufacturing, construction, out on the road in sales roles, perhaps don't have ready access to their emails, and that's where we can print hard copy posters off with a QR code, so ease of access to book in their consultation or check. Once the employee actually books their skin cancer check, they'll also receive a confirmation email, and then they receive an automated reminder email 24 hours out from their appointment. So that's all set up. So what we aim to do is, do most of the heavy lifting for you, and then it's just a matter of, how do you launch the program, how do you position the comms, and is that under, a key theme or initiative around your broader wellbeing program. Please shout out if you have any questions, guys, as I've mentioned. So this here, it just gives you a bit of an understanding of what are the common workplace checks, and what percentage of workplaces are offering each of these different types of medical or health assessments. So you can see there up the top, biometric health checks. That's pretty much your standard health check, to include things such as lifestyle screenings, exercise, nutrition, sleep, alcohol intake, blood glucose and cholesterol readings and measures around cardiovascular disease and diabetes. That's pretty much going to be what your biometric health check looks like. These stats, by the way, I believe are from Ibis World in 2021, so probably they're fairly up to date numbers, and you can see there 47% of workplaces are offering some sort of biometric health check. Second in line is skin cancer checks there for 29%. And for us, skin cancer checks are our most popular service. And I guess we're here today in mid-September for obvious reasons, in that the timing and the popularity of skin cancer checks between October through to March is when is when people think most about the health of their skin, or are more aware of sun safety. So it makes sense to roll a program out at this time of year. However, in saying that, over the past 2 years, we've seen a pretty consistent spread all across the year. So there's no you must do checks in this time, skin cancer checks, but obviously it's when people are aware and thinking about it at this time of year. You can see vision checks and hearing checks in there at about 26% each. And again, like, this is going to vary based on your workforce or the demographic of your workforce. If you have a heavy blue collar workforce, if you like, those kind of checks. And Michael, we talked about this at the start of before everyone jumped on. This is part of legislation for many states at the moment. And if it isn't, if those kind of checks aren't already, I know that, for example, in New South Wales, hearing checks are as part of legislation from January 2024. So as just a quick snapshot, you can see here, these are the kind of checks that workplaces are offering outside of pre-employment medicals, ergonomic assessments, flu vaccinations, those sorts of things would all come under this. The next slide is again just giving a bit of a high level understanding of what is out there. So this is more via service in workplaces. So again, I would like to point out this is 2021 data. So firstly, you can see there mental health programs being 4% of the overall workplace services offered. I would suggest since 2021, that would most likely be a little bit higher than it is now, given what the pandemic has shown us and the learnings around mental health there. So I would certainly expect that to be a little bit higher. But it gives you a bit of a broad snapshot. So health and fitness programs, almost half of what is being offered was being offered in 2021 were health and fitness programs. So that would be potentially on-site gyms, discounts to gym memberships, access to personal training, those sorts of things. And I would also suggest that while mental health would have come up, that might have come down a little bit, because that was probably more, while it's a hugely important part and benefit as part of a wellbeing program, I would suggest that it's not as important as maybe what it was once seen as. Education and training, so you can see there 10.5%, that would be things like workshops on site, it would be resources, it would be leader capability training, perhaps mental health first aid training, all of those sorts of things. And then you can see here health checks taking up 38% of that market. So under health checks or health assessments, I would consider that to be a biometric health check and skin cancer check. So again, just kind of giving you a snapshot of what's out there and what are national workplaces offering to their employees. I touched at the start on talking about, I suppose, how can you structure your wellbeing program to drive the highest possible engagement and empower your employees with options to look after their wellbeing from a mental, physical, social, emotional perspective. So this is just how we go at the time. We're about 15 minutes. I'm going okay. This is a really quick example of one of our past clients or current clients' wellbeing program structure. And I'd just like to mention that there's kind of two ways that we work with our clients, either through one-off annual programs, such as a skin cancer check program, or we're also, our signature, I suppose, is working with organisations on their wellbeing strategy and how to structure a 12-month calendar in order to cover those key wellbeing pillars and perhaps align with the internal values of the workplace, but also ensure that we're creating a program that makes sense to employees, has key themes, and allows you to to communicate, on a regular or quarterly, in this case, quarterly rhythm as to what employees have access to over the coming months. So I won't go too deep into this one, but you can see it's fairly straightforward. Quarterly theme. So we're trying not to. In the past, we worked with a lot of clients that were looking at monthly themes, but what we've found, our learnings anyway, was that it was like hard work for you if you're the key program. If you're managing this program and you're rolling out the program, it can be pretty tough. You always feel like you're running on the hamster wheel and you're chasing your tail. What are we going to do next month? What have we got coming up the month after? But also, what we also saw through the pandemic was that employees didn't want even well-being thrown down their throat too much. It was kind of almost well-being overload. So we've found that a happy medium and the sweet spot for communicating your benefits and workplace programs is on a quarterly rhythm. You can see there we've got key themes around healthy habits, healthy immunity, healthy sleep, and healthy minds. Again, just one example. And under each of those key themes, we then have, for most quarters here, we've got one key program, which is going to give the employees an understanding and information on their health risk status, but also for you as the employer, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to give you data which you can leverage to ensure that you're actually providing your employees with what they need, coupled with obviously your surveys that will ask them what are the things they're interested in and what are the things that they want. But just to dive a bit deeper into that point, I think it's great to any kind of wellbeing offering. We love to work with clients or organisations that are progressive from this nature. But anything is better than nothing. What I will say is that it's also, a little bit pointless just having a stab in the dark as to, let's have some yoga classes weekly, or we have our EAP program, so we've kind of ticked the boxes, we're good to go. And just guessing what your employees kind of want. You need the information. If you don't have any data at the moment on your employee risk status in terms of their health, then you need that information. That's where these key programs can play a big part for you guys to leverage. What do you actually do for future or subsequent years? So again, you can see there the start of the year is optimizing physical health. So that is a wellbeing workshop around sleep, exercise, nutrition, and then we might launch the program with a skin cancer check offering in February, for example. April to June, most organisations roll out a flu vaccination program. Let's face it, important service, but pretty boring service. So we try and make it a bit sexier by creating a healthy immunity theme around that, and that might include some a workshop offering around food for mood or something like that is an example that we would deliver. Or as you can see there, nutrition for the hybrid workplace. July to September is a focus around sleep health, and that might also include, a lot of organisations roll out their step challenge in September, but it may include a sleep challenge, for example, that aligns with that theme. And then to round out the year, when employees we know that are feeling a bit burnt out, but perhaps ready for a break, we find that time of year is a great one to roll out a healthy mind or a mental health focus around wellbeing, and that might include employee health checks, which will give them information and peace of mind around nutrition, sleep, diabetes, cholesterol. But it also would, in this example, includes a mindfulness 101 workshop to talk about, how can we give you the tools that you require to reduce stress and increase meaning in your day-to-day. Okay, so how to deliver skin cancer checks. So this is probably what you kind of came here to know. If you're in that phase of, like a couple of you have already rolled out a program that may be best practice and making some changes to what you've done, or for others, this is kind of the nuts and bolts as to what to be aware of from go to woe with the skin cancer check program. So the first one that you can see there is select type of skin cancer check. So there's a range of different checks out there. Most notably, the one service that we deliver is a comprehensive 15-minute assessment, head-to-toe assessment using dermatoscope technology, as I mentioned. There, you will also see a exposed areas only check is a reduced, usually a 10-minute check that is for face and arms. So really that's, yeah, obviously that is better to have a service and offer that than not offer anything. However, I always like to be transparent in that at Pinnacle Health Group, we're kind of strong believers that if the service is going to be offered, you want to offer the best in class service. And clearly, in Australia, we're spending a lot of the time in the sun, and most employees at some point in their life will have spent time with, down at the beach, shirt off, in swimmers, whatever that looks like, and exposed areas only is not necessarily going to allow us to check for those for melanomas in those areas. So we're strong believers that the 15-minute head-to-toe assessment is the best-in-class service, and hence why that is the one that we offer. But just sharing what else is out there in the market. And there is also some virtual options out there via, smartphone technology. So there's a few other options out there for remote employees and those that can't easily access a clinic, along with a voucher system. So we offer skin cancer check vouchers, very similar to a flu vaccination program, in that employees receive an email with a link to download their voucher and they can access a clinic which is available at some more regional or remote locations around the country as well. So I guess first step is what do we want? Like what's our workforce? So tying into logistics and locations there. How many locations have we got? Where are they located? Things like for our employees, how often are they in the head office, or are they in the office versus working from home? And certainly, we're well aware that they are the challenges to bring together. How do we ensure that we drive the highest engagement, given we've got a diverse workforce, or many are working from home in a hybrid environment as well? But coming back to the type of skin cancer check, there is always, for us, the gold standard is the on-site, and that's always going to be the best option. But the voucher will also allow access to on-site, and then some of the other options around smartphone technology are of a really high quality as well for those that can't access a tangible site. In terms of budgeting estimate engagement and budget, so we obviously need to understand what's our total employee population and how many employees do we expect to actually engage in the service. Some of our clients send out expressions of interest to get a bit of a gauge on that. My experience is that employees always say, yeah, that sounds great, I'm really keen to engage in the service, but when it actually comes into getting into the workplace to access it, maybe they're not so committed to it. So for us, across the board, over 15 years doing this, we've seen about an average of about 30 to 35% engagement across skin cancer checks and health checks. So from a very high level, if, for example, hypothetically, you've got 100 employees, you might expect to engage around 35 employees in the service, but obviously that will depend a lot based on what are the office sizes. So, if you only have 20 or 30 in the office, perhaps you might see almost 100% engage. However, if you've got 5,000 employees, then you might reduce that a little bit and estimate somewhere around the 20% and build up from there. So considerations around how do you communicate and launch your campaign, and that also ties into promotion and awareness. So for us, we always recommend at least 2 different mediums where you're sharing or promoting your workplace wellbeing services. So one might be your intranet, another one might be a monthly EDM that goes out. It might be Slack, it might be Yammer, it might be you have a monthly on-site activation in the workplace. Definitely still cannot go past the in-person launch or the in-person promotion. So we've got Are You OK Day this week. A great example of when we're bringing employees together in the workplace. That would be a really perfect opportunity to say, great, we're here as part of Are You OK Day. We have a speaker talking to us about how we can manage our mental fitness. But also just to note to all employees, watch this space because we have a skin cancer check program that we're rolling out from February next year. So we're really keen to get everyone involved in that and offer a great service. So again, I won't go into it in too much depth, but different mediums for how you're launching or creating awareness around your program. The actual skin check delivery, really quickly, would be So for us, it would be we would share our proposal with you, which would outline all the key services, the service outline and the pricing. Once you decide that we or you're another provider are the right fit, it'll then be, okay, let's look at preferred dates. Once those dates are firmly locked in, then we would send a practitioner out to your workplace to deliver those checks on site. We deliver 28 15-minute skin checks in a day, and that's pretty consistent across most providers. But things to consider there would be, do you have a private room accessible on site? Do you have Wi-Fi access? What are the parking? Do you have parking available for the practitioner on site? But it's essentially fairly straightforward. If you've got a room and if you've got some privacy in that room, worst case, even butcher's paper, so employees feel comfortable that their other colleagues are not walking past and they feel really comfortable in the appointment. That's the main thing, and then allowing access to the practitioner to have Wi-Fi access to the building, all of those sorts of things. So pretty straightforward and easy to run. And then obviously, as I mentioned, we'd provide the data report within a couple of weeks post-program and interpretation of the results and further recommendations for you. And just finally, I've talked about most of these things already. So the average engagement, the space and privacy requirements. Again, gold standard is the on-site skin cancer check, but there is other options out there. And coming back to the point around if you like driving engagement in the program, we talk a lot about wellbeing champions. So I would certainly encourage, if you don't already have a group of health-inspired employees at your workplace that can help support you in rolling out the communications and encouraging people to get involved in these sorts of programs, then try and create a network of champions to help you with that. And our other recommendation would be, that might be individual business units or leaders at those particular locations to help drive the program and create some awareness and interest in what you're offering. And finally, in their incentives, obviously always offering some sort of incentive to employees to engage in the service is going to result in higher attendance. Alrighty, so that kind of rounds out all the information that I have to share with you today. Firstly, hopefully you took, the goal for me today is just to provide a high-level understanding of what are the things to be aware of, what's actually involved in delivering a program, and how can you take the first steps if you haven't already in rolling that out, or maybe looking at what you have done previously and is there any adjustments or changes that you could make to that for yourself, Margaret and Rick, who have rolled the programs out before. But I'd like to hand over to you guys to ask if there is any questions to shoot.
Yeah, Trent, just a quick one. You said earlier that you're based in New South Wales. We're in Victoria, so you're a national company?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we roll our services out for most of our services, but health checks and skin cancer checks across Australia and New Zealand.
And New Zealand, okay. Yep. And you mentioned, because we have regional projects and stuff as well, or regional offices. So the practitioners, the people that go out and do the testing, you said they're not proper dermatologists. They have a certificate in skin cancer assessing as such. So they travel, or do you have a network of doctors or a network of?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, clarifying a couple of questions there. That yes, they are not dermatologists.
Yeah.
So they're not qualified to remove any lesions, but they are with a clinical background in skin cancer assessment and dermoscopy. So they're well trained in assessment of the skin and being able to recommend the required next steps. Much really more well trained than the GP would be. However, we need the GP to provide the referral to the dermatologist, and that's pretty consistent across the board for any workplace skin cancer check service. So that's the first answer, and the second answer is yes, we can deliver the services regionally as well. That will just include some travel costs, associated travel costs for depending on where the location is, and we would work with you in the program delivery to to give you all the information required, and then be able to roll that program out for you. Thanks, Michael. Any other questions, guys, before we wrap up for today? I can see, Margaret, you said no, so thanks for attending. All good. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I really appreciate your time today, guys. As I said, I hope that you took a couple of key points out of today, a couple of gold nuggets for your program. If you already have a current provider in place, perhaps some ideas to share with us. And obviously, yeah, as I mentioned at the start, this is our key service, or one of our 2 or 3 key services that we offer. So if there's any questions post today, or you're interested in discussing how we could help support a skin cancer check program in your workplace, please feel free to reach out. And also,